Hi, everyone. This is the acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. It's Monday, April 6th, and today I'm going to take a look at Mars's upcoming square to Uranus. This is happening between today and tomorrow. You'll feel the effects maybe all the way through Sunday. The full moon is also tomorrow. I'll be doing a full moon video tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Today we're going to look at Mars-Uranus. In the meantime, I want to remind you that all three of my courses begin in the middle of June, so registration is open. Things are filling up. There's an early bird rate right now if you want to sign up for my first year course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. I save $500 off the full year tuition. There's also a payment plan, and then we are always happy to work with people, especially right now due to the coronavirus. If your budget or income finances are affected at all, you can apply for need-based tuition. That's all explained on my website, nightlightastrology.com. But we're really happy to work with people right now if you are struggling because of the coronavirus and you're looking for something to learn, something to study, something to pass the time, or you were hoping or planning to study astrology, but there's some budget uncertainty and you need help. We've really been happy to work with anyone and everyone right now. So if that's you check out the need-based tuition. That's all of those payment options are right there, and just apply for the need-based tuition if you need it. So the course, just so you know, the first year course, optional certification track you can take. A lot of people do that. It's a one-year course in ancient Hellenistic astrology. There's 30 courses on the year, 2 to 3 hours each, plus 12 additional guest lectures that come in, guest speakers that come in. It is a study in the classical roots of astrology, which, if you don't know the difference between, say, modern astrology and classical astrology, a lot of people think that they're like, oh, I don't need to take, this sounds like an introductory course. But I'm always being sure to tell people, actually, if you've never studied ancient astrology, I promise everything in the course will be almost entirely brand new to you, because you're relearning the language of astrology in a much more structured and somewhat more rigorous way. Also, specifically because ancient astrology is much more predictive in nature. Modern astrology, in many ways, its hallmark and its strength is in psychology, in being able to describe behavior and personality and things like that. Ancient astrology is more of a karmic science, and that we're saying this kind of thing specifically is going to happen around at this time. And having both is really nice, but it does require, in many cases, that if you already know modern astrology, that you are having to go back and sort of relearn everything that you've learned in some ways to find out it's very different from the classical perspective. So it's really good for people who already know something about astrology but want to add the classical roots to their repertoire. And for people who are brand new to astrology, it's great because you're really starting from the classical roots and moving your way up. The course is called Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. So by the end of the course, we're really learning how to take the more concrete predictive skill set of ancient astrology and bring it forward into a more modern psychological counseling dynamic. So you get to see me by the end of the program working with a lot of live clients and showing you how to implement both the psychological and the predictive elements of astrology in a sort of in an integrated manner. So it's a really fun program. Like I said, there's 30 classes on the year, 12 guest lectures. There's a ton of bonus material. There's extra quizzes and reading and all sorts of stuff that you can do depending on your level of sort of commitment. Some people take it just because astrology is a hobby and something they really love. Some people take it because they want to be certified. They end up taking the certification exam and going on to practice for other people. I will be hosting a few guests coming in to talk to you about the program, and so you can hear from them about what it's like. I think that you'll enjoy that. I also have a year 2 program and a horary class. All 3 of those classes start in the middle of June. So I invite you to check it out on my website, nightlightastrology.com. Like I said, we're very happy to work with people right now with need-based tuition, because we know that a lot of people are hurting. So feel free to inquire about that if you have any questions. All right, so today we're going to take a look at Mars's square to Uranus, which is perfecting between today and tomorrow. Let me give you a look on the screen first. So first of all, here's Mars at about 4 Aquarius. Here's Uranus at 5 Taurus, and the square is perfecting between today and tomorrow. The full moon coming through tomorrow. That should be quite a powerful full moon moment. And this aspect will be in effect basically until the end of the week as well. So you will be feeling this one for a little while. All right, so what to expect from Mars and Uranus? Well, of course, Mars and Uranus, one of the more powerful, dynamic, and sort of colorful transits, you could say, because both planets are planets that love to act and love to express, and are quite loud and busy in the way that you see them and notice them typically. Now, of course, as always, some people are going to experience this more loudly and more dynamically than others due to the configurations in your birth chart and due to the other transits you have going on in your birth chart. But you should be able to notice this energy in the collective, for sure, in the news or in the lives of people around you or in your environment, if not within yourself or more personally. So here's what we're looking at. You've got Mars, god of war, god of muscle, strength, power, speed, courage, assertiveness, action, domination. Also a planet that's associated with violence and aggression and hostility. And you have Uranus, a planet of revolution, rebellion, defiance, innovation, sudden shocks and disruptions, the impulse and urge towards freedom and independence. Those are all Uranian themes. So we're putting the two together in a square. Squares are of the nature of Mars, which means the two energies are in some ways a little bit conflicted right now. Now, that can also mean that there's more of an impulse to action behind the energies, and they are already very action oriented. So the square just kind of amplifies that. The urge towards independence and freedom, to break containment, can be very powerful in the next few days, as can the urge toward sudden displays of independence, freedom, to assert one's will in the face of authority. Those impulses can be really strong. Sudden breakthroughs where there's been a limitation, you can suddenly experience this feeling of surging energy and breaking through some kind of limited period, or some way in which you've been holding yourself back, or some way in which you've been feeling inert or stagnant. You can suddenly get just like a jet charge of energy to move forward. So similarly, there's Uranus and Mars are sometimes associated with almost like a reckless urge to act or to break rules. And sometimes the contain energy, the breakthrough energy, will lead to accidents, mishaps, or some degree, some rashness that leads to something destructive. So you'd have to be careful of that. You can see flashes of anger, rage, temper, muscle, power, that are going to be very sudden, very fast, very aggressive, very kind of like lightning striking. You can also notice that there will be more of a tendency for machismo and kind of individualistic energies that are very proud or confident or cocksure. You can also notice that there is a desire to grab life by the neck and sort of when I was a kid, I used to love the movie Dead Poets Society. It was like one of my favorite movies of all time. Probably some of you loved it too. Carpe diem, that seize the day energy, very Mars Uranus, and could lead to something, brave, courageous, something that, acts of heroism, and but also potentially, seize the day sometimes is the last thing that the drunk kid yells before he does something really stupid, so also Mars Uranus can be wildly sexual, Mars being the impulse to hunt, to destroy, to penetrate, to consume. Mars can be like really sort of horny and sort of erratic with Mars square Uranus. So the seeking of like orgiastic experiences, orgasmic breakthroughs, the thrill that someone looks for when they ride a big wave or jump off from something with a parachute, you know what I mean? Just that kind of orgasmic thrill seeking, or really intense sort of libidinal instinctual drive, which can be sexual in nature. You can notice blasts of anger and rage mixed with the urge or impulse for freedom. Watch for heat, fire, cuts, burns, shocks, all things that, my daughter just last night or 2 nights ago, the bath water was running and it was cold. So I turned it to the hot side to make it warmer for the girls. And she ran over and stuck her hand under it. And it wasn't like it didn't actually burn her, but it was a shock for her. Right. And she jumped back and, started crying, and she was fine. Her hand is fine, thankfully, 'cause it wasn't that hot, but it scared her. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really Mars Uranus. Anyway, so you can see, just little things like that, like be careful of, putting your hand on the burner right now, just stupid stuff. Also, impatience, like just, I'm impatient, so I'm going to go do something, and getting into trouble because of that. Attraction to what is contrarian. Someone says, don't do that, so you do it. Someone says you can't do that, so you want to do it. I feel like I had a friend the other day I was talking to on the phone, and he's particularly brilliant, and one of probably my best friends since childhood. And I was talking to him about flattening the curve and everything happening with the coronavirus, and he was like, yeah, Americans are just so, we're also just so freaking cowboy in our mentality. Like someone's like, look, you've got to stay home. Everyone's got to stay home right now so this virus doesn't spread. And we're all like, you tell me to stay home, I'll get my 22. I'll shoot your, I'll shoot your face off, mister. You don't tell me what to do. I'm going to go ride my bull around town. Just my impression stupid, but his was so funny. And it was just this perfect impression of like American cowboy mentality. Like nobody tells me what to do. So, anyway, be careful of that voice within yourself right now, because, Mars Uranus sometimes means the fight for freedom or heroic acts of defiance against a tyrannical authority figure. But other times Mars Uranus just straight up means that idiot who won't do what's good for them because they have a complex when it comes to accepting authority or rules. So then there's also fighting for an ideal. Mars Uranus is the fighter with an ideal. Sometimes blind to their idealism, meaning that they will harm people because they are so caught by the fire of their ideal. Also, you have people who are breaking limits or barriers or boundaries in sports, like record-defying things, or some display of recklessness or defiance or rebelliousness with regard to athletics. I don't know what that would mean exactly, but for example, I know that some sports are trying to figure out how to work around sporting industries like baseball or football or whatever, are kind of trying to like find a way of still, holding their seasons in some cases against the best advice, I guess. I was just reading something about this. I don't know much, but anyway, you also have people who are the hero, but it's like vigilante or like Robin Hood or Batman. There's some sense of being a vigilante or being an outlaw, but also a hero. You also have the story of Icarus, flying too high to the sun, too much ambition. You have the seeking of transcendence or of liberation, spiritually or otherwise. And, it's interesting because I've said this before, but one of the famous quotes in the Bhagavad Gita refers to those who drink the soma, potentially a kind of ritual drug that was used for the seeking of religious ecstasy or visions. He says, those people who drink the soma, they may attain to the heavenly planets. I'm paraphrasing here from the Bhagavad Gita. They may attain to the heavenly planets, but the somewhat unfortunate news is that even the heavenly planets are places of misery wherein repeated cycles of birth and death take place. And after a while, they fall back down anyway. So the idea being that the more that we seek through any degree of seeking of transcendence that's still rooted in a feeling of dissatisfaction, a feeling of need and want and greed and hunger, that we seek some kind of spiritual liberation from the standpoint of the Bhagavad Gita anyway, and Bhakti Yoga, which is part of my spiritual path. We say, look, any kind of spiritual thrill or spiritual liberation or spiritual enlightenment that you seek that's coming from a selfish impulse, it just entangles you even more. So we also have to be careful about that. Sometimes people treat spirituality like it's, you know, a competitive sport. You can always tell that this selfish impulse is there. I have to watch for it in myself too, because it's not like you know, it keeps coming back to tempt us, because people will tend to brag about some particular skill that they have spiritually, or they will combine their knowledge of something with sexual appeal. Like, look at me, look at how much I know, look at how smart I am, and look at me half naked. Or they will, you know, they'll try to sell something spiritual and tell you that you'll be, that this is the spiritual thing to do, and you could make $1 million, right? So anytime that people are peddling, you know, money, sex, vanity, selfishness, all of this stuff, along with some great message of leveling up spiritually, you have to be really careful of that in general in the world. But that kind of stuff can get amplified a little bit when, you know, Mars squares Uranus. So Mars Uranus can mean individual victory and individual greatness and individual heroism. But the question is, what are we serving? You know, what are we serving? So good things to check in on for all of us. I look forward to hearing your comments in the comment section. How are you experiencing this Mars Uranus energy? I'd love to hear from you all. Also, I would love to hear about how you are doing right now. For those of you who are working out in the world, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Also, people who are in healthcare, bless you. Thank you for your service. How are you doing? Has anyone out there personally been affected by coronavirus? Do you have loved ones? I'd love to hear your stories, if nothing else, so that I can just, you know, pray for you and commiserate a little bit. Meanwhile, we'll be back tomorrow with a full moon report. I look forward to that, and can't wait to catch up more with you about the full moon and a few more transits this week. All right, take it easy. Bye.